if we all kind of focus on the community instead of the individual, and we all share the resources, we take care of the poor, we take care of the people with problems, and then the rich also are fair and they don't get too rich. So that was the ideal communism, right? Theory.
Learn always to dance with the devil.
Mhm.
You'll see a lot of people on social media that you don't agree with their opinions, and it's so easy to hit unfollow or block this person.
Yeah.
But then if you just allow these opinions to be around you without being super annoyed about them or feeling like I want to flee or I just don't want to see it, and then block, and then only I see the things that I like.
I'm a man living in Pakistan. I had the dream, you could imagine, from also like a relatively middle class, upper middle class, socioeconomic status. I didn't have to lift a finger to do anything. I was treated as a prince by my mom because men don't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the majority. I was basically the white man of the Western world, right? And then I moved here and I become a brown immigrant. Hi there, and welcome to the Weekly Bustle. I am here again after one faulty recording that you guys will never be able to see. We are again here with a different group, and we're going to be discussing the social contract. We're going to be discussing the illusion of choice. And with me right now, we have Stefan, we have Jonche, and we have a new face all the way from the Middle East. Natalie is here with us, and for that reason, Natalie, I will give you the first word. I would like you to kick us off and explain to me what is a social contract.
Oh my god. The hardest question. But okay. Probably you saw it in my notes. That's why you asked me about it. But I had an intro for it. Like, how would I explain it?
Yeah.
Let's say you're born in a culture and then you're dealing with another person from the same culture. You have unspoken rules.
Yeah.
Meaning, what time do you arrive? When you say, I am coming at 8 or around 8.
Yes.
Like how the relationship will look like, what is allowed, what is not allowed, how do you eat, how do you behave around each other, what is acceptable and not acceptable, or what considered as rude versus not. So apply this to an overall community and a society, and this, for me, what concludes as a social contract is the unwritten rules we have between each other that will make our life easier, and that's why we chose it.
Sure. I would like to add on that a little bit. I think it's also not just unwritten, but also written rules that you have between, as you said, people, between societies, but also between people and the government.
True.
So that's what a social contract also means. It means that as a government and people, we have decided, hey, killing people is wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think in the law, you have the criminal law, which is a social contract between the citizen and the government, and the civil law, basically, which is when I want to sue another citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also have the group social contract, where it is if you want to be part of this group, you behave like this and this.
Yeah, those are non-verbal, but if you're talking about law, at least in Romania, it's split in two.
For me,
any country.
And I'm trying to make it together because we're not going to go into semantics of law, but I'm trying to go into semantics of the social contract. The contract that we sign, it could be written, unwritten. The fact that we are citizens of a country, we are abiding to that social contract, and that in the case of the Netherlands means that if I pay taxes, some of my money is going to be used to give people who do not have a job, or people who are not able to work, or for roads that I might not even use. And I might not agree with that's my money, why it's being used there if I'm not using it, but that's a social contract I'm accepting, I'm agreeing for living in this country. So what do I mean by this? Where do I want to go with this conversation? What I've realized is that slowly people, especially the younger generation, is forgetting what it means to have a social contract, because they've lived in a free world. They've lived in an environment where they have the individuality and the freedom to do whatever they want. They don't realize that there are some things that you have to give in to get something back from people. And the very good adage that everyone uses these days is live and let live. I'm quite against that metaphor, and I will explain later on. But Jonche, what are your thoughts on live and let live?
Live and let live. Well, I think it goes against most of those social contracts that are in place. Live and let live basically means don't do anything.
Yeah.
From that perspective, like
I think younger generations have this, but it's the same with any younger generation. Like as we grow older, we become more and more aware of these social contracts, and we become more interested in
Absorb them
politics.
also.
We also become more. We understand we're more affected. So yeah, I'm just trying to kind of maybe be the devil's advocate and defend the younger generations because we were also the younger generation.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
we probably had the same. Yeah, it's just we don't really care about politics when we're teenagers because we don't feel that we're affected by it.
Yeah, but it's not really just politics, right? It's
Yeah.
also the fact that live and let live can work in any ways. For example, adults don't bully as much as children, right? Children's
In
bully.
different way.
Yeah, in different way.
Like
But
more,
outright bullying is something children and teens do,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that quite goes against the ethos of live and let live, right?
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm not saying in that sense. I'm saying in the sense of the lethargy that comes from responsibility. It's like saying that I
No,
don't
but-
care.
but-
your lack of accountability,
Yeah.
you would say.
For me, it's not just accountability because live and let live would basically mean if there's someone struggling, you just pass by them and just don't ignore.
Yeah.
Like it's his life, it's not
Yeah.
mine.
It's his choices, not mine.
Yeah. In that sense, not just the social contracts. It's just
Okay, so
that,
you mean overall? Yeah.
Overall,
I
yeah.
get it. I get it. When you're against it for this specific struggling reason, or you have some other point of view?
depends on the situation. It's case by case. I'm always in the middle, so I never go for or against.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this sense, I would be probably more against.
Yeah. So how do we try to amalgamate this situation where we are sitting in a society, which is the Western society, where you give everyone the freedom of choice? You're like, do whatever you want.
Oh.
You want to work, you work. You don't want to work, apparently, you don't work. Right? If I come from a country like
but
Pakistan, you don't
I
really
wanted-
get that choice.
I wanted to mention that part. It's not everywhere the same.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Because I
yeah.
was recently in Tunisia and they do not have social security. So when you're out of the job, you're out.
yeah, but I'm talking mostly about the Western world here. So Tunisia doesn't count.
It's pretty close.
Tunisia is Africa. It doesn't really count. For the stake
For a
of
lot of norms, they're included in Europe because they're on the Mediterranean.
But would you count Egypt as well then?
Depends on the.
I would
depends
say
on the-
geographically and culturally, they're called MENA region, so
Yeah,
Middle East and
MENA.
North Africa.
Yeah.
They
because
are.
They're more
definitely
similar
Arab
to Middle
countries.
East. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a good point to acknowledge first is what I'm talking about is the Western world. And when I moved here to the Netherlands, I always used to put Europe also in a bucket. But after meeting two Eastern Europeans, I realized that even Europe is a questionable bucket. So I'm going to go very strict, and I'm going to be like Western Europe and the US, like Western Europe and North Africa or North America. So that region is where I'm talking mostly.
Global North.
Yeah, the global north, as some people say, so that we exclude some of the Eastern European nations as well, which are more similar to Eastern countries more than the Western Europe. And again, their social security applies. US is an exception, of course. Social security applies, but criminal, all of that case, I see. And this, I think, the problem here is that I see US being the culprit here. They're the ones who propagate this a lot. In the most recent election, what made my eyes open was that US is not as progressive as we think it is. Right? It is very protectionist. Yes, misinformation plays a lot of role, but conservative, protectionist. But Hollywood tells you a different dream. Hollywood tells you they're the most ideal, the more positive, and those are the cultural values they have exported to the world. In Pakistan, and I think Natalie can also speak for the Middle East, I have women, men dreaming of living like Americans and Europeans in a very different context. And I'm like, but do you even know how people live there?
Yeah.
Even they don't live like the way you want to live.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
unfair.
And it's,
So,
But
yeah.
it's
that-
very, very.
that's different from classes, I guess. Not. It probably is like that on certain class, though.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, even like in your own country, like probably a person of a different class than you would have a completely different experience of your country compared to you.
Yeah, of course.
So so I would say like but back to your point, like I think also this was a very, very huge problem, and still is a very huge problem because as a refugee from the Middle East, you think of the US as the movies, and you think of Europe as the movies,
Yes.
and you're like, when I go there, they're gonna give me house, car, and I'm not gonna have to work.
Yeah.
And then they all go with this dream, like
Yeah.
they cross borders and countries, and then they come and then they're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So that's also like contributing to many like geopolitical factors around us. So yeah, like what's America is exporting.
It bothers me, and this is bringing us back to the topic of what I want to ask you this time, Stefan, is the paradox of individuality. How do you make sure a society exists and is stable when each of the participants of the society has a choice not to partake in society?
Yeah.
They're like, I do what I do. I'm doing enough. I don't need to do more. I don't need to vote. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
Some of them might even argue, I don't need to pay taxes. Everyone else is doing it, so I don't need to do it because I have my own choice. If I can bet this, that if you had to pay your taxes afterwards, rather than it being taken away from you the moment it comes to you, a lot of people would have chosen not to give the money back because they would have gotten it, unless, of course, there was some police punishment on you. So that tells you that people will choose to undermine the state that gives them the freedoms that they have. So
Yeah,
how do we handle that?
But this is a very difficult question. You're basically asking me to solve politics. There are so many systems for a reason. Like you have, we tried communism because people thought, oh, okay, if we all kind of focus on the community instead of the individual, and we all share the resources. We take care of the poor, we take care of the people with problems, and then the rich also are fair and they don't get too rich. So that was the ideal communism, right? Theory, and then of course reality kicks in, and you still have corruption. You just people take advantage of the system in other ways, and then you have people who don't want to work and participate. They find ways to not participate, and they get paid anyway because we're sharing resources. Then you go into the extreme polar opposite of capitalism, where like no, you are rewarded only if you work, and everybody is rewarded as much as they work. Then you go into the extreme of individuality. So each country kind of tries to find a balance, I guess, and this is where I feel, as a bringing it back to a previous discussion, basically why I don't feel inclined to judge countries as like Russia and China anymore, because I feel these systems, it's a very wide spectrum, and it's less black and white. It's not communism and democracy, and there's only two extremes, and it's a very wide spectrum in between. And the democracy in Netherlands is very different from the democracy in Romania, and it's very different. Communism in China is very different from communism in Romania from 50 years ago. And I feel that this is the responsibility basically of politicians and the community within that country to find rules that work for that community. That's why, for example, in America, also they're a federation, and they have federal laws, but each state then is encouraged to like, look, if you guys have, I don't know, certain problems, you're supposed to be allowed and empowered to find solutions to the problems that you have.
No, but all of these systems vary from one place to another place. I mean, even if you even take North Korea, the name of North Korea is Democratic Republic of Korea. So you have your own. You choose what you want to do because there is no specific way. This is what it is.
And then at the end of the day, how do you measure the effectiveness of the system? Okay, if it's too individualistic or too, what's the opposite of individualistic? Communist.
No,
Collectivist, socialist, collectivist. Yeah, like as long as the people are happy and they're thriving.
But how do you decide that? People, Saudi Arabia, Saudis are happy. Qataris are happy. But they're happy based on a whole history of exploitation. So it doesn't work. And if you ask the people who have been exploited there, they're also happy.
How do you measure happiness?
That's what I mean.
That's not.
But that's what I mean.
I wouldn't
that's
say
why
that they
happiness
are
is
happy because they're not working or they're exploiting others.
No, but they're content. They have the ability to do whatever they want. And people who are being exploited, like my father was, he's also happy because he said, "What I earned there is miles more what I earned in Pakistan." So I was happy. It's okay. Some of my money was being taken away. It's okay that some of my stores had to got closed by an angry, spiteful Saudi landlord. But it's okay because I still got to earn much more than I would have if I was in Pakistan. So that's why I don't trust.
I treat the political systems and ideologies the same way I treat biological organisms. Like if they're still alive, then they're working. That's it.
They're there for a reason. That's what I say. Like say whatever you want about, for example, ISIS,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was there and it was for quite some time
Yeah.
because it worked.
Yeah, it was a counter
And
movement to something.
and yeah, I mean, like not popular opinion, but once they started, they were like supported by many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so like yeah, as long as it's there, there is always supporter.
Yeah.
There is always people who's gonna say, okay, we want this, but then who decides? What is the choice?
That's what I like. That's and I'm now liking what we're thinking, right? And this is the problem that we're having. Coming back to the topic, if you give everyone the choice to decide, everyone the choice to do something, you will never have a consensus. Even in the Western world, everyone is broken apart into little islands in which everyone says, "No, I'm right. No, I'm. No, I'm. No,
Yeah.
I'm." And because of that, you have no consensus except for on certain things in which you're completely on board. That yeah, okay, we are all free, and we all you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. Oh, live and let live. Why do these statements exist? It's because we want to come to an understanding where we're like, hey, as long as we're all allowed to say something, allowed to believe, allowed to do our own things as free people,
Yeah.
that's okay. But does that mean it's working?
This is now touching to the previous topic that failed to record, where the basic idea is like who should be governing, like voting. Does every vote count
Yeah.
the same?
Yeah.
Socrates was against democracy because he said you need specific people with knowledge about this
Yeah.
to decide.
Yeah.
So you kind of need the same for every step of the way. So if you let people be driven by their emotions, you're going to end up with all these kind of different
But
mess.
even that's a choice.
Yeah.
You know, like you cannot just take away people's choice from them. You know, like if you say
Why
okay,
not?
Yeah.
I like it.
because if you think I am looking for the greater good,
Mhm.
which is I want to elect the right person, you're putting yourself as God. You like I know better than all of you. I know better than all those people, and I choose that all of you, like not all of you will vote. Only 10% of you will vote, and those will make
No,
the
but
decision for the rest.
that is another social contract where you say that I trust the doctor to give me a better service than the guy from the street
You mean
because
Stefan?
he has the knowledge to treat
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. It's expertise is being undervalued under the name of choice and freedom. A good example of this will be right now the citizen journalism that's happening, the citizen's truth that's happening on Twitter and everywhere else, where Elon Musk just recently came out to say that the traditional mainstream media is dying, and the power is in the hands of the citizen journalists. Citizens cannot be journalists.
Yeah.
Journalists
But
are
this
journalists
is-
for a
this is-
reason.
You're making the what we're doing right now
Yeah.
is something that is
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
No, exactly. You're right. I agree.
Like
this
we
is an
shouldn't
oxymoron. Yeah.
we shouldn't
Yeah,
be
yeah,
doing
yeah,
this.
of course.
We should be experts only
Yeah.
to have an
Yeah.
opinion about
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, we're sharing opinions. You're right.
But then this is how like a human history developed not because like there is a person who knows everything and then made it true. Like there is a person who was helping who didn't know a lot, but then
Yeah.
they had a different point of view. So
But
like
yeah, and a
your
lot of ideas
opinion
were
matters.
being pushed down, and they surface.
Sometimes decades, centuries
they-
later. Yeah.
This is where I feel maybe my brutality kind of kicks in here. So okay, there is the choice. Okay, like we should give everybody the option to choose and to vote for whatever they want, to give them extreme freedom, sure. But there's also this freedom is limited not just by other people. It's limited by reality, by food, by resources, by options like physical options. So the thing that came to mind was basically how America got founded. Basically, Britain discovered a new land. Until then, that was the world, and then like, oh, there's more land, and then they moved people there, and they had the resources to extend, and then the people there were like, I don't want to. I don't want to agree to these other guys from. I don't want to agree with the king anymore. I have all this land all to myself. I have options now, and I have the power to actually do others. I have more freedom now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like when you have that, it's easier for some people to instead of learn to agree with people that contradict their own ideas, they just go more for the individualistic approach. I think until now it kind of worked because maybe we had more resources. We were going through this boom, like some
now-
for Windows, and now suddenly there's no more land. There is no second America. There is no, resources that would allow us to all have big mansions with white picket fence. Suddenly, our mansions are our mansions are tiny studio apartments, and we have to
With the bathroom right in the middle of the apartment.
exactly, yeah. And we have to suddenly now they're limited, and we have to learn to share, and we have to agree with our disagreeable neighbors.
Yeah.
I think
but,
that's
sharing, I don't think is an option.
I agree with your premise, but I would challenge back on the last part that you just said. I think that is the problem that we're facing right now because of technology. Back then, because of geography, we had to learn to get along with people because there was no other option. I could not find a friend across the world who would validate my opinions. I was sitting next to Natalie, who was saying, "No, you're wrong," and I had to accept it because Natalie
Yeah.
was my neighbor.
Yeah.
We were going to see each other every single day. We
Yeah.
can't fight with each other all the time, so I had to learn to accept. Yeah, me and Natalie might not agree on a lot of stuff, but we're neighbors first. We're citizens second,
Yeah.
and then we are our
And then
belief
if,
system.
if you get sick, then I will help you because
Yeah.
I am a neighbor. Even if we have different religions,
Exactly.
even if
Yes.
we have different.
Yes, and now that has
differences.
changed.
If you want to leave your family, you go 3 blocks down and live a completely new life.
And because and now
simple
because
as that.
of technology, again you have this illusion of individuality,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh no, I have my own tribe, I have my own people.
Yeah.
You don't. People online are not your people. They're not going to come when you're sick. They're not going to be there to help you. They're not going to be there for the daily grind. They're just going to be there to validate your opinions. And because of that, we have suddenly in a world where we believe we have the freedom. This is what I agree with you. We have the freedom to make whatever choices we have because we live on an illusion.
Yeah.
And that illusion is crumbling in the West, global North specifically, because the systems are not working. US is not working. Europe has been
And it's
electing.
creating more polarization because the first advice I got when I started using social media when I was 14 was from a really nice person who said, learn always to dance with the devil. You'll see a lot of people on social media that you don't agree with their opinions, and it's so easy to hit unfollow or block this person. But then if you just allow these opinions to be around you without being super annoyed about them or feeling like I want to flee or I just don't want to see it, and then like block, and then only I see the things that I like. Then what is the point?
Yeah, it's the echo
You're
chamber.
not
You isolate yourself in your own bubble. And
Yeah, it's
you
your
think
own-
you're
and
always
then
right. And,
and then like you more and more adopting your own beliefs, and then you don't see what is on the other side.
Yeah. To add to this, like I agree with both of you. Yeah, to add this, I actually recently watched a podcast, and the person said about friendship, and it's like, yeah, we have this illusion of friendship. We're like, oh, I have a friend in America, a friend in China, a friend in Africa, and we talk once every 6 months. And like, yeah, okay, you have 1,000 digital friends, but nobody to feed your cat when you're in trouble, right? So yeah, like we seem to have lost the skill to agree with the people around us and to actually connect with the
And
people
why
around
do you
us.
think we chose this? Because it's a choice.
Because
We
it's a
look
choice,
at
and
this
it's
and
easy. That's the thing. It's easy. It's like America. The people that the British that were in America were disconnected from the British in England. They were like, it's easier for us to just focus on these things here.
To govern ourselves, right? It's
Yeah.
easy.
so people are looking for easy. They're not making a choice. That's what
Life.
really is.
But I wanted to touch on another topic because with this finding your own group that agrees with you and disagreeing with everyone else, we tend to go towards harming other groups because we don't hear the other group. And this is the polarization that is happening in US. It's quite evident
Everywhere.
everywhere,
We
and
have
it's
Romanian
something.
elections now, and
It's something that people forget what they stand for because they're trying to make it better for their group, but they forget that there's more than just their group.
But that's biology, right?
It is biology, but
It's
if you
tribalistic,
stand for like the liberal values, which are the equality for people, you should stand for everyone in the same way. And what we're seeing here is like we need to correct for what was done wrong in the past by overcorrecting. So you have the pendulum. And
Completely
just-
swinging.
yeah.
But what is happening now is also an overcorrection to the liberal movement, right?
of course.
So
Before that was evident.
The liberal movement was an overcorrection to the past conservative values.
That was
and
evident.
Now we're going to
That was evident because I felt it in me as well. Because I am liberal. I am liberal, but what is happening now on the left is totally against what I believe. Against. So
it gets murky there, right? It gets scary. Like I met an immigrant who told me that, hey, I am an open-minded person, but my God, who are they letting into the Netherlands these days? And I was like, you are an immigrant. You are an immigrant. Did you forget that? And people do
No, no,
forget
no,
that.
but it is always circumstance, your own personal idea of how you got here. Because if you got here by a work visa that they invited you, and then somebody else got there in a different way, you don't see that person the same. Because yes, he's an immigrant, but he's not me. Like
Yeah, but that's with everything, right? That's
that's for everything.
everything.
Yeah.
And,
So that kind of explains for all of this. You had a lot. I love that in the U.S. there was the rallies, the tiki torches, and one of the person was a Croatian immigrant with the tiki torches to take out all the immigrants. It was a paradox in itself, but it is real.
And how many immigrants voted for Trump, for example?
Yeah.
It's not an like.
For the first time.
It's insane amount.
Because but that
it is also, I've read in Germany, a lot of the really right people are immigrants. So it's the same thing.
yeah, I think loyalty.
They know where they're coming from, and they don't want to. No. I came here for a reason.
Basically,
I don't
like Romanians, They're like, we left Romania for a reason.
I'm already here. Don't let other Romanians come after me, please.
Close the door behind.
It's like if you change your country, it doesn't change your beliefs. If you come from a country where it's already conservative, then you coming here is not going to make you open-minded. And,
But that's
I would say it's not completely true, because I think I changed. Maybe it is with growing up, or maybe it is
interpersonal
coming
skills.
here.
No, you can change as well. But what always baffled me was whenever I would think about these things of conservative mindset or elitist mindset, is that remember that whenever you are a majority in one place, you can be a minority in the other place.
Yeah.
Circumstances change like this. Could be those immigrants who had to come here because of reasons of like war. Could be reasons for what we came here for work visas or something like that. I'm a man living in Pakistan. I had the dream, you could imagine, from also like a relatively middle class, upper middle class, socioeconomic status. I didn't have to lift a finger to do anything. I was treated as a prince by my mom because men don't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the majority. I was basically the white man of the Western world, right? And then I moved here and I become a brown immigrant who has to do his own dishes, who has to do everything. And suddenly I was like, huh, what?
Life
The
has
West
a-
is not that nice.
Yeah. So that really taught me this one thing, that you have to realize that a majority can switch to a minority at any point in time. So it's always nice to know the other people's shoes. And what I try to do here, we can't come up with solutions, as Natalie already pointed out. We're also just sharing our opinions. But what we want to do is we want to explain things. We want to understand things. And what I'm trying to do here by talking about this thing is trying to understand how we came to this point where this individuality, instead of becoming a free thing, becoming a useful tool to help us innovate and become equal beings and build upon each other, to becoming a paradox of sort in which now we're using it to destroy ourselves as society. Because it's not about using your choice, as you said, right? Choice, just for the sake of it. That we were given the freedom to choose because it had a purpose. And now it feels like you're just choosing for the sake of choosing. I choose to do this. I choose not to do this. It's my choice, my life. Let live. I'm bringing it again and again because it suddenly is what you just said. You have loyalty to a thing because you like that idea.
Yeah.
But over time, you forget that, and now you're just loyal to the thing just because you're loyal to the thing.
Familiarity. Yeah.
I wanted to say something else, which is against what we're discussing now, social contract, which is actually what George Carlin mentioned when what happened in World War II with Japanese Americans.
Yeah.
Japanese marriages.
What happened with Japanese Americans was they completely lost their social contract, which is the government would protect them, and they ended up in internment camps instead of being able to be American citizens and be protected by the government. Because the moment they went to war with Japan, they became the enemy.
Us versus them.
Yeah. So this social contract, this trust, is fickle.
It's fluid.
Yeah, evaporated.
It's fluid. Yes.
It's always changing. Like government's laws change all the time. But when something like that can be just taken away,
from you,
it's a bit like awakening.
But can you explain what would happen with the Japanese?
The
With the
Japanese
kind of-
Americans were arrested and put into concentration camps,
In the
just
US,
like
yeah.
what the
Simply because they were Japanese.
what Germany was doing to.
No, but I don't think it was the same. They were not killing those Americans.
They were not killing
They were
them.
detaining
No, but
them.
they
and
were-
they were like, are they
Intern-
spies or?
They are in internment camps.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were living in America for 3 generations, but just because they had ties with Japanese or their grandparents were Japanese, suddenly they
Or they
became
looked
targets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they became-
Or they looked,
because and I think that is a very interesting point. Maybe as much as we want to believe, going back to what we talked about in individuality, the concept of living in a society, as much as we want to believe culturally how evolved we are, maybe biologically we're not that evolved. When we live in a society where we all don't look the same, we want to accept the fact that, hey, no, look, we're all Dutch citizens, like you and me. I don't know about these two, but you and me. And for example, living in a global environment, maybe we're not designed for that. Maybe we're designed to live with people who look like us, and that's the only way we can build trust.
Well, I don't think that is true. I think it's more about when it gets tough, what survives.
That's what
So what's the breaking point?
Yeah,
It's not necessarily the difference between how we look.
yeah,
It's who is the enemy at the moment.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, like I feel there are like two, I don't know, biological needs or whatever. Like on the one hand, we're selfish by nature. We want to have our own individual. I want to drive to work by myself in my own car. I don't want to carpool. I don't want to share public transportation and all that. But on the other hand, there's also this need to connect with other people and they have a community. But then they kind of
It's okay. Like this is a very human thing, you
Yeah.
know. Like within you, you have two things. And then what you learn in your childhood is that either you emphasize one thing over the other, and what you do as an adult is like rebalance things. It's like if you were too individualistic as a child, as an adult, you find yourself more learning or leaning toward I want to learn how to share better because I've seen what not sharing meant to me as a child. Like I was isolated or like as an extreme. So you unlearn that as a balance.
Yeah.
So in all of us, we have the love for ourselves and also the love for the other. And then it's a spectrum. It's like, okay, today I love myself more, and then tomorrow I love the other more. And then it's like it's a spectrum that you play with within yourself, and then you move toward what makes you comfortable as a person, makes you better, provides you with better gains.
And
So
I think
it's-
this is where the problems start appearing because people start wondering, okay, how far should I move the needle, and who should I associate? Should I associate with? How individualistic should I be? Do I need only 3 people in my life and then I'm happy and then screw everybody else? Do I need a whole, I don't know, I could go to church and become part of the local church and have hundreds of people, and then again in those local denominations, if I'm Christian, then I treat Islam like the evil religion.
dividing your community,
yeah.
dividing what
Or-
is
or-
my community versus the other.
Yeah, or like what happened in America. Yeah, it's us versus them from a like national point of view.
emergency point of view.
Yeah. And so I think this is where the problem starts appearing because even if those Japanese American people were on the same values of everybody, all the other Americans, they were still discriminated. And this brings me of a funny story because it reminds me of a funny story from Ireland. The grandpa of one of my colleagues was telling me that every time he met a new person, they would ask him, "Are you Protestant or Catholic?" And until one day when he met basically a guy from Egypt, this guy was Muslim, and he was like the same, so are you Protestant or Catholic? And the guy was like, "I'm Muslim," and the grandpa was like, "Yeah, but Protestant or Catholic?" So that's how he like that's how he kind of that's how he knew.
That's the lens.
Yeah, that was the lens. That's when you
Correct.
okay. I trust you or I don't trust you. Like our values align or they don't align. He didn't care. He didn't care that he was brown, for example. He didn't care that he looked
For his
Arab.
loyalty,
Yeah, but in
towards
his
it.
mind, he only cared about this thing. This is how he aligned with the person.
Yeah, but that's a sort of tribalism, right? So we have
Yeah.
biological tribalism that we trump that with our religion, with nationalism and other stuff.
Yeah.
And now what you just mentioned, and what you also alluded to a little bit in the back, I think that's the new form of tribalism that we have, and that's economic tribalism. The reason why in capitalist societies, you see polarization and tribalism against us versus them. Like tapping into those biological needs is specifically economics. In the last 15 years, 14 years of our lives, in the Western world, it was a boom. Everything was going up, prices were going up, wages were going up, and everything was going up. So you were fine. They were very inviting. They're like, "Come, help us. We are diverse. Diversity brings us strength and everything." And suddenly, last 2 years has been inflation. Suddenly, people have less money in their pockets, and they start pointing fingers. They're like, "Who's the reason I have less money in my pocket?" And they can't blame something like the pandemic, because that's not a human. That's not a thing. That's not tangible. So they point at something else which doesn't look like them. They're like, you brown person might be the problem. These illegal immigrants coming in.
Conspiracy
Or
theory.
conspiracy. The world is controlled by people. So you start. So there is actually psychological studies on this. That people's altruism changes based on their economic state situation. If you're more rich, you are more altruistic. If you're not, you're less altruistic.
There's another underlying thing in there, which is nobody examines themselves. It's never my fault. It's someone else's fault.
And that's also human, right?
It is human, but that's how it goes to pointing to the fork.
It's
Because
easier.
It's not me. It's not my
It's
community.
easier.
It's not my country. It's
that.
But
them.
it's also,
But
it's also what he mentioned. Like this is a very like it's if weather destroys your entire village, you can't blame the weather because you can't explain it. It's just you can't mentally. It's very difficult to just say, well, it just happened.
If you attach a god to it.
Yeah, if you attach a
That's
god,
still, but that's still justifiable. But that's still
even if
justifiable.
God,
You can't
said
attack
that,
God.
it's like
But you
higher
might.
power.
Yeah, you.
That's I think I want to loop in back to the choice and how God and church played the part of it. Is that because I come from a background as Muslim, so Islam is different from other religion. It gives you like a manual how to live, okay, and the manual is very very like it gives you rules like how to enter the toilet, how to how many times a day you should wash your hands, how many times a day you brush your hair. It gives you even little details like what is how many times should a man like sleep with his wife, or like it gives you that level of detail. So like it eliminates almost
all uncertainty.
Uncertainty. And I think from a social contract point of view, it's very useful because I come to the relationship with any human, let's say from Islamic point of view, and as a trader, you have your list of rules that tells you this is your rights and this is your things that you should do for me. And then I come with these expectations. And then things work.
Yeah, because expectations are
Without,
clear.
yeah, exactly. It's like you're a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. This is what you should do. You should never raise the price. You should never put the very good fruits at the front and the bad at the bottom. This is cheating. You can never da 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 da. So it's like enormous.
You already have the rule book in place.
Yeah, but religion is
Exactly.
every religion is a rule book, right?
Yeah.
It's just depending on amount.
But I think
But the thing is that
Islam
all of religions are changing with time.
yes, true.
Well, they should be updated. Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
You would
No,
need
they are
and
updating
I
it.
think-
2.0.
I
They are
think
updating
The
it.
problem is that it takes away all your choice, but it's very dependent on the interpretation of the society at the time.
Yeah.
So you take that and you say, okay, this is like
But then again, who decides the interpretation?
yes, exactly.
Same problem. And in our religion, it's clear who decides the interpretation is the ulama. So it's the word of God, and then the word of the prophet, and then the word. Then
Like 70
then-
scientists.
Then
should,
the religious scientists have the next say. So whenever you want to evolve religion, it has to be the religious scientists who will decide how this will be applied to this world right now. But that's also a hierarchy in itself.
exactly. And then like taking away all the choice of people, and then you come to the West world where you come like, okay, you're given all the choice, you can do whatever you want.
And that to me, that's more paralyzing. Then it's not freeing. Yeah, it's not freeing by any means. It's confusing. If you have one bottle of ketchup that you know that is ketchup made from hopefully tomato, but that's not really true, right? Problem solved. You go buy that ketchup, but now you have 20 different types of ketchup, and you don't know which ketchup is the best ketchup. And as a human who is trying to maximize, as a utilitarian who's trying to maximize the pleasure in his body,
Which religion should I choose?
which ketchup should I choose?
But I disagree on that point. It's not that the amount of choice for ketchup is wrong. It's the amount of choice in total that you have.
Yeah.
Because if you have the time to focus on choosing the correct ketchup for you, you will find the one that you like.
But
You
is
will
it worth
find-
it?
Uh, that's the thing.
Yeah,
So
but that's what I mean.
because
Does it bring
you
you
have a
happy?
lot of choices everywhere, you need to pick and choose which ones do you spend
But
your time.
I
Prioritization.
would argue
Psychology
that.
disagrees with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I would
Even if you
argue.
find one, you'll be unhappy.
You will
with
be
that.
unhappy.
Yeah,
You'll
Yeah,
be-
yeah,
because you think
No,
like
no,
there is
but-
a perfect choice somewhere.
And there's no such thing as a perfect choice. That's why limiting your choice set is what most behavioral scientists say about how to live a better life or how to build discipline.
If you limit your choices on the things that you don't,
Yeah.
that you consider
Yeah.
that won't matter to you,
Yeah.
like choosing what to wear every day,
Yeah, but you're limiting that
Choo-
choice by purpose.
choosing
Yeah.
what to eat every day. Those are choices that you can limit,
Yeah.
physically limit them
Yeah.
yourself, and
Yeah.
you can have better life.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah, but that's
Theoretically.
that's what I mean. The capitalist environment tries to give us more choice. It thrives on that.
Yeah,
It's-
materialism.
it wants you to have multiple choices, so there's more
But-
competition. But humans thrive on less choice, and instead of relying on willpower.
What I want to say is that I don't want it to go to A or B, because then that choice is an illusion, basically. Which is the political system in the US, for example. You have A and B.
Yeah.
You need at least three to break this
Tie.
balance.
Yeah, I'm okay with 3 choices. I'm not okay with 50 choices.
Yeah,
And
but
50
I
choices.
don't want it to be like choices is bad. Have
No.
one or
Yeah.
nothing, like communism.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah,
wears
yeah, I
the
agree.
same
But
clothes.
even,
This is
even
not
that
what
is
we're saying,
very,
yeah.
very, like, like we come here and then we think, okay, there is so much choice. But then if you speak to the Dutch who have been living in
They're not-
Brabant, they're thinking like, it's so boring. There is nothing
Nothing to
like
do.
people are controlling my life. There is so much constrictions from
Yeah.
society.
Brochekas.
It's-
That's all I'm eating every single day.
It feels like I come from a completely like. Don't you see what I see?
Yeah,
It's
like,
like they
you-
don't see
yeah.
the choices they have.
Yeah, but that's everywhere around the world, right? I just went to
Yeah.
Madeira last week, as I told you guys, and they're so gorgeous. Everything looks so good for a person who lives in this kind of a world of a concrete jungle. You go there, you're like, this is gorgeous. But you look at the locals, they look unhappy. They're tired of climbing the freaking mountain every single day to just go get groceries. And you're like, are you not happy here? This looks wonderful. They're like, it's happy. You're happy because it's just for a temporary amount of time. Live here your whole life and you're going to be bored.
And they all want to move out.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
repetitive.
always the case.
Repetitive behavior.
Yeah, and that's all. It's human to suffer. It's human to be unhappy, and it's human to, for some reason, believe that no, this is wrong. And that's the paradox is amazing to me, and that also is why I want to bring it back to the topic of individuality and choices that we make in our society. The reason this is not working is because it's been working for a long time, and people are bored. When people get bored, they're tired of the system that's been working. They want to change up the system because that's human. It's human to want change. It's human to try something new. It's human to innovate, right? It's human, just like evolution. You want to
Yeah.
tweak a little bit here.
It's also, no, I think it's also about people not being grateful for what they already have. There was a discussion that I had with a friend of mine. She was very upset about taxes. And I was trying to explain to her, like, she was like, "Oh, what am I paying taxes for?" Like, I was trying to. This was going on while we were, going and grabbing a coffee and walking through the city on a paved sidewalk.
I've never seen broken roads in the Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mostly,
I've-
well, mostly in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some things you have to
I
give them
drive
some
every
time.
day.
And my friend suddenly she realized, she started reading why she was paying taxes, and some percentage was taken for roads and whatever. And she was like, "Why am I paying for roads and all that? I don't care. I don't have a car." And I was trying to explain to her, yeah, but this is also about the fact that we have a sidewalk. I was trying to explain taxes to her, and this is where I feel that a lot of people maybe kind of go with the same mindset. It's the same, I think, psychological effect, just at a grander scale.
Yeah.
You have certain things and you don't appreciate them, and you think that it could be
Other
better.
side,
Yeah, that it could be better in
greener.
another side. Yeah, that it could be better if you wouldn't have to pay taxes, and I think it's very difficult. Like, if you lived for an eternity, probably eventually everybody would learn the same lessons, and we would maybe reach a point where we could all agree on something. But that's the thing: when you have 1,000 options, you don't have the time,
The bandwidth.
the bandwidth as well to explore all of them and go to one country and go to another country and try communism and then try democracy and be like, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Okay, now we agree.
And that's the illusion we live in. We live in this
but-
illusion that there is so much information that we'll be able to consume everything and make the perfect decision.
Yeah.
One thing that is really important to about this, a lot of choices about not being satisfied with everything. A lot of this came from the information age.
Yeah.
A lot of it came because now you can see how the richest person in the world lives, and you can compare yourself to that person. You
Yeah.
can see how everybody has a great vacation while you're stuck at work and you have
Yeah.
to work.
You have
In
the
the
illusion
past,
that you can do
in-
it. Yeah.
in the past, you did not have this. In the past, while you're working, you don't know what is happening. You see your neighbor, you talk to them, and that's the information.
And
you
even
get.
if you see your master, you don't think I want to be that person.
Yeah.
Like you don't even. It doesn't.
because you
like
know
you have a glass
you know
ceiling.
better
Yeah.
than just his vacation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know
Nowadays,
him. You know
nowadays you're told, look at how this person lives. The only reason you're not living as good as them is because you haven't informed yourself enough, or you haven't tried hard.
You're a
Capitalism.
loser. You're
Yeah.
a loser.
Yeah.
But this is the capitalism has brainwashed you into believing
That you can do anything.
you can do anything, and that's not true.
And especially millennials, I think this
Yeah.
is especially the most affected.
Because we are the ones who we grew up with the age of social media. We grew up
Yeah.
with MySpace and then Orkut and then Facebook, and then we
Apple
saw
and
with the
Google
boom.
from the garage.
yeah, we saw the boom. We saw people becoming rich, and we were like, oh, this is the
I
life.
can do it.
Yeah,
I-
and you can't.
And I think that's where basically this kicks in. This mindset kicks in when, let's say, I'm sitting at the table with different various people with various opinions. Then my mind goes like, I don't like these people perfectly. Why am I here? Oh, I can just go and find new people. Why do I have to, compromise on anything? Why do I have to compromise on anything?
Yeah.
Screw it! I can just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically the same mindset. Like we are not
And I think
It's
it
instant
affects
gratification.
mostly in dating. Like you will see
dating
it,
as well, friendship
it's
as
like
well.
you will
but,
see it so much like in how horrible the dating scene is because of like people like I want this and
Yeah, but also going back to your thing, choices.
yeah.
You can just swipe right and just see so
There's-
many people. You're like, I'm
The-
bored with this. I'll go find another
I
one.
saw 15 better looking people. Why should I choose this?
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
exactly.
It's the same with friendship. This is what I was talking with a friend. Basically, we kind of got into an argument, and she told me that she talked with some other friends, basically, and her friends told her, "You can just, screw it. You can always find other friends." And I was really pissed about this, and she agreed with me, But,
Consumerist,
but she was like, no, like I didn't listen to them, but this is kind of the mindset now as well. Like you have a problem with your friends. Why sit down and have an uncomfortable discussion when you can just find new friends? So that kind of ties in with like it's very difficult to build a community and to have people want to stick to that kind of community.
Yes.
So you go into this individuality, and then people go to extreme individuality, and because they probably don't know how to connect anymore and how to compromise.
But that's because we are living in a world where we've given those people so many choices, and you have to make them understand. And again, my question is not taking away those choices, teaching them, explaining to them, making them aware that you should limit your own choices.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you
That
don't
would-
limit your
that
own
would be
choices,
amazing.
you will be.
That should
You
be in
cannot
school,
choose,
basically.
Yeah, that should be in school because you can't limit these people's choices. It's impossible for suddenly the government to say that this is not happening. The people will revolt. They will not be able to understand this, and that's fine. But learning to discipline yourself. The only difference between a person who's disciplined and a person who's not disciplined is how much they're
Say
willing
no.
to, the story that they're willing to tell themselves. And if the story you're willing to tell yourself is, you know what, there is no need for me to find someone else. Me and my wife, like any other married couple, fight a lot. And whenever we fight a lot, whenever we get mad, I always tell her when she's mad at me and she's fighting, I'm like, sort of, just so you know, we both aren't going anywhere. So either you learn to live with this fight, or we fix this fight. Because there is no third option. If you're thinking of a third option, that doesn't exist.
Exactly. As much as I disagree with Jordan Peterson on a lot of things, I agree with him when he said this. Basically, it's like, marriages fail nowadays because people think they can just move out and they divorce and it's relatively too easy.
An affair is so easy.
And affairs, but
It's
when you
easy.
are telling yourself, look, this is it. There is no other choice.
Other-
There is no
other choice.
I have to learn to make it
Work.
better. Yeah.
Make it
if
work.
I'm unhappy, I need to make
Sit
it
down
better.
and,
To sit down and see
But-
how to make it better. Yeah.
To be fair, eventually life beats you down to that level anyway.
I guess, yeah. But that's what I was saying. If we could all
you can learn it or you can.
No, but I would argue the problem that's happening in the West, no, global North. I'm hating the word though. I like the West,
Global North.
but global North is that no one is giving them that feedback. The reason that people right now are the people that they are with the choices that they're not voting, that they're not putting in the effort in their communities, that they're willing to go out and date random people and not stick to a relationship, not learn how to compromise, because no one is giving them feedback. Because taking feedback has become a choice. Right? Before, if me and Natalie were neighbors and I did something to piss her off, my other neighbors would come and tell me that you did something wrong with Natalie, or Natalie would come and tell me, or something would happen that we would get the feedback that the other person is mad at us and we need to do something. Yes. Now nothing happens. What? Ghosting.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. That's not how it works. It cannot work like that. You cannot have a society that functions like that. Right now,
And it's like, even like people take it to extremes, like where they work, like they would leave work, like as like, I'm not happy with this thing, and I could just like jump in between
Jobs.
roles and it's but I mean, like, it's also a skill to say when to say no, and when things are really not suiting you. You know, some things you come into and then you're like, I don't think
there's a difference between
That
discomfort.
is a
and
good point.
Yeah.
Our fathers' generations who used to be, they go to one work and they
There-
work there
Yes.
for the rest of their lives. And now it is like after 3 years you should change your job because
Otherwise, you're
Stale.
hitting your
Yeah.
glass. You're stale. Yeah.
you're losing money basically.
you will be less valuable
Yeah.
in the future because
So they're basically because it's capitalism again. That's the thing that underpins most of our discussion and most of our lives. Is they reward you for your individuality, for your exploitativeness, because that's what they want. They want
So the system
the system wants you to cut throat at each other. They want you to look at the other person on Instagram and be like, I want to be like that person. I want to work extra hours. I want to do that. I look at that person and be like, no, I can do better. I will divorce this person. I'll go marry someone else, because to marry someone else, you need to woo them again. And to woo them again, you need to spend money again.
but it is
the whole
it's more
process
about the
continues.
money. It's more about buy the things that the person is
Buy,
wearing.
that's what I mean. Like, it's all about the
like
capitalism.
Join the clubs that
Capitalism works on spending. As long as you keep spending, that works. And when you limit your choices, you start spending less. And that's why I'm not against spending. I think there is a really interesting way you can come. Like circular economy is a concept, right? In which you're like, I'm not going to stop spending, but I'm going to stop wasting. So I still spend. Subscription services are an example of a very stupid concept. I could own my laptop, and now I rent it out for 6 months, and then I have to give it back. But I'm still paying the money. Why don't I just rent it, own it? Well, the benefit here is it doesn't get wasted. You have a sustainable conversation, and you still pay money to keep the system working. You need to find a way to make it work.
This is if you trust the system.
Yeah.
This works, because I think that's came into my mind basically what happening with the companies in Japan, for example. Like in Japan, you join a company, you don't leave. If you leave the company, you're not allowed to come back to that company. And if you find another job, they'll be like, okay, but why did you leave the first company in the first place? You know, they'll be much more careful. But then I think the fear in the global north or whatever.
I'm not liking it.
Yeah,
But it's because of you guys.
Yeah, the fear. I think the fear is here of the exploitation. Like, you know, like we hear horror stories of how, you know, workers are exploited, or, you know, the community kind of exploits the individual. You know, and the individual gives too much to the community, and to the point of losing their mental sanity. So I think now we're living in a fear of like, no, I don't want to sacrifice myself or sacrifice anything. You know, for the community. So we end up extreme individualist, and unfortunately, this kind of creates a vicious cycle. Companies also don't really expect you to stick for long that much, at least in the Western world. So I feel like
that
they're
goes
not
both
like
ways.
a
yeah, it goes both ways.
commitment,
That's why I'm saying it's a vicious circle.
Yeah.
You know, but if companies basically would probably encourage more of the community-oriented behavior, and bring people that want to be loyal, let's say.
I believe that that part for not necessary to be loyal came from the companies first, because they wanted to change people. They wanted to
It came from
introduce
people.
new people. This one is better. This one goes out. We get that one. So because of that, you lose your trust in the company that you use. Like, they're gonna get rid of me the moment they find someone better.
I feel like it's shifting a little bit. I don't know. 'Cause
And that is because we have a global market.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in the US. I can put a hub in India, China.
Noida.
Yes.
Noida.
Yeah, that's a betrayal. That's breaking of
The social contract.
Social contract,
That's
right?
breaking of the social
because
contract.
the company, instead of saying, "Hey, we are loyal to the people here. We will hire people here, and we will pay them what they're worth."
It's about
We'll be like, "No, we're gonna move. We're gonna open a new headquarters in a country where we can pay less."
Yeah.
And we'll
That's
still
a betrayal.
no,
you
but
know?
it's betrayal because not just because they're not abiding to the social contract here of not hiring these people, but also then have been shameless to still sell to these people. If you don't want to hire, then don't sell. That's fine. Open up headquarters in Noida, India, and then go sell your product there for those local prices. That's fine. But when you're here, pay here and pay, because that's how it should work. And that's again, it's not true capitalism. If it was true capitalism, this won't happen. This is the problem with governments and capitalism mixes together to find this very unhealthy thing where you don't want
Yeah.
crashes, you don't want problems. The government bails out these companies because they're doing bad business. It's unhealthy. In capitalism, companies die, and that's
Yeah,
normal. Just like
this-
evolution, new companies come up and companies die. But now you're refusing to let companies die because
This is
a recession will happen.
But this is a weird situation where it's happening to companies. It's not happening with countries. Countries, if they exploit, and then they leave or stay there to exploit.
Yeah.
But with companies, they're free to go anywhere.
Yeah, but countries are tied by geography. Companies aren't anymore. And that's the problem that's happening. But I do want to bring the conversation back because we're heading the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I want to have some closing thoughts, and I do want maybe you or me to also talk a little bit about what he said about the problem with individuality and the overcorrectness. Because in collectivism, you apparently give too much and you don't get much back. Like you lose your sanity. There's two people from collectivist culture. I think we might have something to say on that, and we can share that opinion. I'm mixed about that, so I do want to hear yours as well. But also closing thoughts from you guys. So Natalie, why don't you go first? Any closing thoughts? Then you can talk about this topic as well.
Closing thoughts, or
You can start with that, and then with the closing thoughts.
wait. The topic was
Collectivism.
collective. What in which aspect you were
So
talking
I
about?
was thinking of basically what in Japanese culture, for example, or South Korean or Chinese, basically people give so much to the community, and they're encouraged to work hard and do more for the community. That basically the highest suicide rates in the world are in Japan and China and South Korea.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking.
Like
It's yeah, I don't see like collectivism like you give to the society too much because you also get too much from it. Like I don't see it in a way that is like, oh, like I am giving myself away. Like I know so many people that are in Jordan that are very happy with the community they form. They are very happy with the way our things are going because as they grow, they give more rewards to it. So okay, I give away a little bit of my freedom as a woman by listening to my brother and my father, and they know better. But also, I can get for it is that I don't have to work full time. I can get as much money as a stipend as I want, as I can move around kind of freely. So that like I don't see it as a collective society or as a communal system that you put in too much compared to what you get out.
Yeah,
I think it just depends on your personal preference. I want to, for me, when I left that society, my choices were I want to wear whatever I want and I want to work whatever I want and I want to build my own life. And that was not an option in that society. So that's why I moved to more individualistic society where I could apply those choices. So it was if for example my sister would have different choices in life, she's very happy with that. So what do you want?
but I think that's the whole.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
Because basically, it seems that these cultures of Japan and all that seem to be struggling a lot.
Yeah.
That's why people don't eventually have this choice. They have this need that you're saying, but they do not have your option.
So they kill them.
So actually, yeah.
And I think I like what you just said. And of course, I have to tread carefully because wearing what you want and everything is a very women-centric problem. Not a man in Pakistan can live through that. So do correct me if I say anything wrong. But that also came from somewhere. That came from in the start of the Western values that were put onto you through the Western world. Because a Jordanian living in Jordan, a Pakistani woman living in Pakistan, would not be thinking about jeans and crop tops out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Out of nowhere.
You don't see them.
You don't see them, you will not want to wear them. How do you see them? And that's the struggle of the whole choice mindset in collectivist societies. I think what she said in terms of you get too much and you give too much, we actually have a word for this, what my mom and me always say to each other. In Urdu, we call it gutan wala pyar, which actually means strangling love. In collectivism, you have strangulation of a love. It's like I will shove it down your throat, even if you don't like it. But The
It's
benefit is,
medicine for
yeah,
you.
and the benefit
That's
is you
mother's love, basically.
yeah, and the benefit is you can do the same.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to do the same. It's your choice if you don't want to, but you can do the same. But you can't take away my choice of not doing it to you. And that system works if you live in that system. But if you try to, what you just said in the start, if you try to apply a Western ideology there, it will not work because that freedom is a Western concept. It is not an Eastern concept. But problem is, in a global world, you get exposed to those ideas, you get exposed to those Instagrams, those gorgeous looking people who are living their dreams, and you're like, I want that, but you don't realize that they're lonely.
But also, like you have a freedom as a person in the East, like that. It's a completely different definition from the freedom here.
Yes.
Like you have a freedom that you don't experience here. I would
Yeah,
say.
that the word for them won't be freedom.
Yeah,
The word for them won't be freedom, but it is still something liberating. But we will
you
learn.
experience
Yeah.
it. You definitely. I don't know what is the word for
Yeah.
it, but it's like you cannot say that. Okay, by those measures, you're less free. But then, like, I don't have to pay 200 euros to go to, as my friend from Mozambique would say, like to go see the dolphins. I just go to the beach and they're there. You know,
Exactly.
like it's
Yeah.
like
In certain things,
It's-
this security that you get, for example, in Pakistan, if you're a woman, you don't need to work. You don't need to do those things because the social contract is the man does it, and you enjoy the domestic work. Do you want to do domestic work or not? That is not up for debate here. The social contract is you take care of the home, you take care of the children, I take care of the money.
Yeah, those are
And
the roles.
those are
assigned.
the roles assigned, and that works for them if they're agreeing to work for them. And you put that Western ideology, that free ideology on top of that,
Oh,
no,
you're supposed to choose.
Yeah.
the
supposed to
roles.
choose. And
Oh my
here in
God.
the Western world, women still choose to stay at home or work less if they have children.
the work market here for women is so much less than men.
But some of them also choose. We have having this debate.
because
They're like, I want to stay at home with my
That's the
children.
thing. That there's still like these roles got assigned through biology naturally, so that biology is still there. No, there's still like the mother staying home with the children is still a natural biological thing. You know, so
Like we have to be treading
That's
carefully.
very-
We have
very
to tread carefully.
No, but
Yeah.
no,
But
okay. Why don't
because
want to be
because
the
like
other side?
Yeah.
the Netherlands, for example, is a very good in that point. Is that they want to have more support for women so they can actually work full time because they are struggling with not many people working full time because
No, but I know. I think the thing again, the thing here is in the Netherlands, women are the biggest share of the part-time workers because they choose. Again, it's a choice because they have the systems here. I know women who work full time and their kids are in childcare full time. But they're okay with that choice. But a lot of women aren't. They're like, why should I? This is an argument. This is an argument.
My kid.
No, I know this is an.
Why should I
I
hire
spend
somebody?
time with my
But I
kid?
agree with the argument on the other side as well, that if you can be like as a woman you can be like, okay, so why don't you as the man stop working and
Sure.
then stay
I wouldn't
home?
have a problem with that
and
either.
I will be following my career. That's fine.
but you need the economy to keep moving. It's like
Exactly.
you work full time, bring someone who works full time for you.
And then the children are not. That's a separate debate. I don't want to get there, but
This is what happens in Qatar: is that 50% of the children there, under 6-year-old, speak Philippines.
yeah.
The first language, not Arabic.
Yeah, and there the funny part in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the way we're digressing, the women don't work. Why do you need a nanny if you're not working anyways? You don't work.
You have the money.
You have the money. It's a separate problem, but I don't want to get into there. But closing thoughts, Jonche.
Yeah, I wanted to touch again on the topic with the liberalism part, where I didn't mention something that I wanted to mention, which is the pendulum doesn't need to be always on the edges, and choosing the middle ground where it is equal for everyone at the same time. It will be very slow to get everybody to join there, but it will eventually get there. And the problem with our society is that we want it results now. We don't want it in 10 generations. We want it now.
Yeah, going back to what he just said, that if you would have an infinite life, an infinite amount of time, you can go through the optimization problem and find the best minimum that you want that makes society live. But we deal with uncertainty. That's being human. And going back to what you also said, that it's a learning process. You make a mistake, you overcorrect again. It's fine as long as you keep doing that. It's also fine.
But the way it is set up, it always swings.
It will always swing. I think that's also quite human, right? To just always swing.
It is quite human, but
There's also
it's something that you can dream about.
yeah.
So,
Any reply to the collectivist part first before you want to give your final thoughts?
Not a reply. Well, not a reply that can be summarized in such a short amount of time. So, should I start with my closing thoughts? Yeah, on the same idea that you mentioned, basically. Yeah, it's like we're trying. I feel that each generation is doing better and better at finding the right balance between individuality and then
I
collectivism.
used to believe
Yeah, I'm not that optimistic. You should know me better than this. I'm not going to end up on an optimistic note. However, because of this reason that we keep basically we bring in new people, and then the people who learn the lessons then eventually disappear. We are cursed to repeat certain mistakes. Not endlessly. I feel that not endlessly, because if you look, objectively speaking, society is getting better and better. But
which objectives?
it's very sure. I don't want to go into the metrics.
Health,
Okay.
economy,
Yeah, happiness. Yeah, every health economy, happiness is. Yeah. So, but yeah, like we are cursed to repeat the same mistakes, over and
History
over.
will always repeat itself.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful way to summarize it.
Yeah. So finding the right balance, I feel that it is possible, but it is extremely difficult to find it when when the experts die.
Knowledge retention.
Yeah.
But that's the funny part. Experts don't die. You have documentation available now. You have history books.
Yeah.
You know what people have done. If you look at the
but
Trump,
someone needs to read them.
As a software engineer, I can tell you that documentation does not help. When the expert leaves the team, we can have thousands of pages of documentation. It will not
that
replace
means you don't have good
Because
documentation.
there
That's
are-
why I
Yes,
was
yes.
telling you about my idea that you were
But
refusing to
even-
accept. You were like, I don't need it. I'm a software engineer. Apparently, you do.
But everything is like open to interpretation. That's the problem. Is that when you have documentation that without
Yeah.
the voiceover, is that
Yes.
our minds work
So
differently.
no documentation can replace somebody actually sitting down with you and explaining.
But I think that to close it off, I think that is what's missing.
Yeah.
If I could summarize this in word, it is compromise. Well, 2 words: compromise and connection. Right? That's missing. One of the reasons. Pair program. We are refusing to sit with each other. Right? And right now, it's nice that we are all sitting here talking and trying to share what we know. But to be honest, we are also a very small group of people who still align with each other in most conversations. That's why we're sitting here. If we would be disagreeing with each other, we might not be even sitting here and having this conversation, because we won't sit together. And that is the struggle, to go out of your way and meet people who you might not necessarily meet, to talk to people who you might not necessarily talk to, and just have an open mind and learn something new. That's, I think, the best way to end this conversation. So thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this. I hope you guys had fun as much as we did, and we are almost closing in our time. So I would love to see and hear from what you thought about this topic, and I would see you again next time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye bye.
Thank you.